And to make matters worse, guys, there's some phenomenal people that have come from around the world, and they've been grandfathered into a country like Australia, whether it's Eastern European states or South Africa, Zimbabwe, Middle Eastern states. We've been grandfathered in. I basically don't speak any Arabic. I've never been to the place except maybe a week, Lebanon and maybe Egypt. But then you get these people that come here and they're messing it up. They're messing it up. It's like, and the most angry people, I know if you're immigrants, you've got a bit of imposter syndrome, and you don't want to rock the boat, and Labor let you in, and you're just stoked you can keep a job, but you've actually got to talk on this. Australia, people are shocked when I tell them this. Australia is 30% immigrants, and 52% are either immigrants or the children of immigrants. 52%. It's one of the highest in the world for an old democracy like Australia. And if you don't start speaking up on these topics, then we're going to have a situation where they ruin it. They ruin it. This enormous gem we have here called Australia, where we can raise our kids and we can have economic sovereignty, and the government, most of all, for the most part of our history, stays out of our lives, which we're slowly losing now, as we saw in the COVID years. If you don't speak up, we will lose it. It'll become like the crap holes we came from. It'll become like that. That's where it's going. And if we don't politicians are like gloves. They're like gloves, okay? They will either be filled with their own values if they're of conviction, or they will be filled with the values of special interests, of their community, of organizations that lobby them. And you can actually force them to do, if they don't have their own values, if they're not, your values or whatever, you can actually lobby them if you're a constituent. That's what these lovely people on my left have done in their community of Cessnock. That's what they're continuing to do. That's why they almost won the mayorship. That's why they come second in federal elections. This is exactly, in state elections rather. This is, sorry, Quinton's like, I wish we was a federal. But you know what? Stuart Bonds, you guys got behind Stuart Bonds in the federal election for the Hunter. And that's why you guys have a 70% no vote in your area. Yep. And that's what this is about.
I'd like to point out one of the hypocrisies of that whole situation, right? So on one side, on the left, Greens and Labor, you've got some of the more extreme people jumping up and down saying, we need reparations for Aboriginal people because of the colonisation and, you're taking our land basically. But then these same people is okay with importing 750,000 migrants in 1 year. So is that not colonisation?
It's an invasion.
You know what I mean?
It's an invasion.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. I think it was Nigel Farage, he said, what's happening in the UK is D-Day in reverse and slowly.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. They're not monitoring the people that are coming in. It's in mass, and we're not getting doctors and nurses.
No, and that's it. We need houses built. We need tradespeople out there in my industry. I work in the coal industry. We need people with certain skills, right? We need farmers. But I don't think it's not on the list of the immigrants that we're getting in that, hey, we need these positions filled. How about we look at, getting some of those people with those skills and bring them here? But we're getting people, to do bloody waiter jobs.
It's ridiculous. I got so much to say on this, and maybe it warrants another podcast. But when my dad came here, he built the churches that he was buried. He had the funeral services in. He built many churches around the country. He was in the construction industry. He literally helped build the country. If we're bringing in people that are just takers, if we're saying no to people like the ones I met in South Africa, lawyers. Maybe we've got too many lawyers, but lawyers and people with money and entrepreneurs and business owners who I did speak to there that can't even get into Australia. But I've met the people that come here, and it's like, what do you have to offer? You've actually got to buy in to our values. You've got to have a skill set, and instead what we're getting is ridiculous. Like on my team, on this particular team for the podcast that bring it together, we've got myself, an Aussie first and foremost, of Lebanese and Syrian ethnicity. Video editor is French Lebanese. Our switcher guy is a Syrian. One of our comms guys and managers, Italian. Another guy works with us. He's Greek. Our cartoon guy, he's Italian. We're all Aussie, but we come from other countries, and we're here fighting for this absolute gem of a thing. I'm going to stop talking there, but did you guys have any thoughts on that little spiel?
Well, I mean, I liked it a lot. I'm half Slavic, half Anglo myself. My grandparents on my father's side basically fled communism, came here in 1948. Australia's in a much better position than England is at the moment because we've got a little bit of, we've got a lot of water around us, and it's a much harder place to get to than England is. This problem in England has been building up for decades. And one of the big problems in England is, as sort of Ben suggested, that there has been a failure of policing in England. And what you see, what seems to happen is that when, say, Muslim protesters about Israel or something like that hit the streets and start causing damage, start getting violent, the police just turn and run. But when you have people protesting immigration in the street, they're the ones that the police will either arrest in the street, or you'll find they come to your house and arrest you in your house for alleged hate speech. And the Brits are basically fed up with it. They remember the Rotherham grooming gangs from the late 90s throughout the 2000s, where literally thousands of girls were raped, and the police knew about it and turned a blind eye. Why? Because they didn't want to be accused of racism, because it just has to be said, the rapists were immigrant gangs. And
Pakistani Muslim gangs.
That's right. And of course, Tommy Robinson drew attention to this. So what did they do to Tommy Robinson? They arrested him. They threw him in jail. He's just been arrested again. I think we can see that the Brits are at a point now where they've said, we have tried everything. We have approached the politicians. We've approached local councils. We've protested. Nothing seems to be working. Today, there was a big clash between the police and protesters. It's hard to see this not escalating into just a massive conflict in England. I don't think it's necessarily going to resolve what's going on, but what we as Australians need to do is to have a much more responsible immigration policy, which we currently don't have. And let me just say, the best friend of immigrants is a responsible, restrictive immigration policy, and the worst enemy of immigrants is a very relaxed, bad immigration policy, because when you get immigration wrong, that is, when you get the wrong people in the wrong quantities over the wrong period of time, the people who get the blame are always all immigrants as a whole, including the really good ones. So immigrants should be at the front of saying, we want a strict immigration policy. It is in their interests.
Absolutely. And Ben, I want to throw it to you, but firstly, you did